Hi, Rick Morton here. I've written a reported comment piece about the government's proposed changes to freedom of information laws for the Saturday paper this week, which, those laws would, if they were passed, make government more secretive, less transparent, less accountable. But the thing that really galled me and kind of riled me up was the fact that they're using a sort of butchered memory of the Robodebt Royal Commission and the Robodebt scheme to kind of excuse what they're trying to do here, to excuse a more secretive regime. And they're doing it in two ways. The most extreme way to me is that the agencies of government, particularly the Australian Public Service Commission, have made submissions about this bill that said, essentially Robodebt public servants were too spooked, they were too scared to put their frank and fearless advice in writing. And that's why Robodebt happened, because the government didn't get the full advice. That's just bogus. It's not a correct argument. We know what was in those cabinet documents that went to the government, thanks to the Royal Commission, and there is none of the frank and fearless advice in those documents. Cabinet is already completely protected. It's off limits under freedom of information. So it wasn't FOI that made those public servants balk. And secondly, I think the most important thing here is to remember that the Royal Commission had 57 recommendations. The government pretended the 57th didn't exist. It was there in writing in a public document. Imagine what they're doing with freedom of information stuff you can't see. But they pretended the last one didn't exist. And the last one was specifically to repeal Section 34 of the Freedom of Information Act. And they're actually running in the complete opposite direction. They're trying to expand it to include a whole class of documents that are not currently included. The current test is documents prepared for the dominant purpose of cabinet deliberations, for the dominant purpose of maybe being considered in cabinet. Can't touch them. What they want to do is bring in a new test, which is documents produced for the substantive purpose. The substantive purpose. And what we know from the Robodebt Royal Commission, from the senior counsel assistant himself, Justin Gregory, is that that process was already abused. He said in an addendum to a lecture he gave that I reported in my book Mean Streak, that he observed multiple instances throughout the course of the Robodebt Royal Commission where he saw documents that were stamped cabinet in confidence that should never properly have attracted that mark. This bill is a sick joke, and to use the memory of Robodebt, such as it is, to excuse it, is worse still. And it's the idea that we're meant to accept that these new Freedom of Information amendments, if they get through, will make it harder to have another program like Robodebt, it's a joke. It's absurd. It will make it easier, because Robodebt survived and thrived in complete and utter secrecy.